Hello, my karmically connected friend. Try to listen very carefully at this very moment. Is there an endless dialogue happening inside your head? A voice that is constantly commenting, judging, worrying about the future, or agonizing over the past? Most of us spend our entire lives believing that this voice is us. We believe that the thoughts running through our heads are our true essence, and that is the deepest root of all suffering. But today, I want to invite you to take a step back and contemplate a shocking truth, a truth that can completely change how you perceive your own existence. That truth is, you are not your thoughts. Thoughts are simply something that happens to you, not what you are. To understand this, close your eyes and imagine a vast, boundless sky. In that sky, the weather is constantly changing. There are beautiful sunny days with white clouds drifting by. But there are also days when storms arise, lightning roars, and rain pours down. Those dark clouds represent your negative thoughts, fears, and anger. They can be very intense, loud, and terrifying. But please observe more closely. No matter how devastating the storm is, can it hurt the sky? Does the sky get wet from the rain or torn apart by the lightning? The answer is no. The sky is always there, behind the clouds, open, silent, and whole. The sky allows the storm to pass through, but it never becomes the storm. My dear friend, you are that sky. Your true self is the vast and silent awareness. Thoughts are merely temporary weather phenomena that visit and then leave. When you realize you are the encompassing sky rather than those impermanent clouds, you will find absolute freedom right in the center of life's storms. Let us go deeper into this journey of finding your true essence. Part 1. You are not your thoughts. My dear friend, to truly understand why we suffer, let's perform a small experiment right now. I invite you to try to stop thinking for 10 seconds. Don't think about the past. Don't think about the future. And especially, do not think about a pink elephant. Were you able to do it? Surely it was very difficult, or nearly impossible. The moment you command your mind to stop, another thought immediately surfaces. This proves a shocking truth. You are not the creator of your thoughts. You are simply the one hearing them. Look at it objectively. Your heart beats on its own. Your lungs breathe on their own. Your stomach digests food on its own. And your brain produces thoughts on its own. It is an automatic biological function. You never blame yourself for your heart beating fast while running. So why do you agonize over yourself when your mind produces anxious thoughts? The problem lies not in the appearance of thoughts, but in the fact that we unintentionally identify ourselves with them. When an angry thought arises, we hurriedly believe, I am a bad person. When a fearful thought appears, we believe, I am a weak person. We have allowed the chattering voice in our heads to define our entire value as human beings. The Buddha taught that if you were truly your thoughts, you would be able to control them completely. You would be able to choose to think only happy things and permanently eliminate sadness. But you cannot. Thoughts come and go according to their own laws, like clouds drifting across the sky. The most disastrous confusion of human life is being preoccupied with chasing those impermanent clouds while forgetting that we are the vast sky. It is this false identification that turns the mind into a prison for your freedom. Awakening begins the moment you step back and realize, there is a voice speaking in my head, and I am the one listening to that voice. Part 2. The story of Siddhartha and the prison of the mind. To understand the deep origin of suffering, Let us go back in time more than 2,500 years to the story of Prince Siddhartha, the man who would become the Buddha. He was born into luxury, possessing everything the world desires: power, wealth, and youth. Yet, strangely, he still felt a deep, unfillable unrest. Why? Because he recognized a brutal truth of the universe: everything is impermanent. A flower blooms brilliantly and then withers. Joy comes and then goes, and youth eventually gives way to old age and death. Siddhartha realized that suffering does not come from the outside world. Suffering does not come from aging or sickness itself. Suffering comes from our mind's rejection of that truth. The human mind always craves eternity in a world of constant change. We want to hold tightly to what we love and use all our strength to push away what we hate. It is this tug of war, this resistance against the natural flow, that creates an invisible prison. My dear friend, try to reflect on your own life. Do we not often suffer not because of what happened, but because the mind screams, "This should not have happened," or "Why me?" When you lose something, sadness is natural. But when your mind begins to agonize, regret, and refuse to accept the loss, that is when you build the iron bars that imprison yourself. The Buddha found the key to liberation not by changing the world, but by understanding the mind. He saw that the external world consists only of neutral events. It is the mind, with its interpretations and attachments, that is the greatest architect building heaven or hell for each person. The biggest prison is not in physical space. It is in the stubborn thoughts we believe to be true every day. Part 3. The monkey mind. When the deceiver uses your own voice. My dear friend, to keep us forever in the prison of suffering, the mind uses an incredibly subtle trick that few recognize. In Buddhism, we call this state monkey mind, a mind like a wild monkey that never sits still. It jumps constantly from the past to the future, creating endless noise. But the most dangerous thing is not the noise, it is the disguise. Have you noticed? The negative thoughts, the criticisms, the fears whispering in your head, they all resonate in your own voice. When the mind says, "You are so incompetent," "You will fail," or "No one loves you," it uses your familiar tone. Because of this, you believe it wholeheartedly. You believe it is the truth, your own conclusion. You identify with that voice and grant it absolute power to control your emotions. That is the greatest mechanism of self-deception. But awaken to realize, that is not you. Those are just old recordings of social prejudices, childhood traumas, or survival instincts playing back mechanically. The solution is not to plug your ears or try to argue with that monkey. The solution is to step back and observe. Treat the mind like a radio with static interference, emitting crackling sounds. You hear it, you know what it's saying, but you don't necessarily have to believe it or follow its commands. The moment you can smile and say to yourself, "Ah, the monkey mind is telling stories again," is the moment you reclaim mastery. When you observe without attachment, the monkey mind will gradually tire out and sit still. Freedom begins when you stop believing everything you think. Part 4. The dissolution of the false ego. Once we have begun to doubt the voice in our head, let us take another step, a courageous step to answer the greatest question of life. If I am not my thoughts, then who am I? The Buddha taught the doctrine of the 5 aggregates, skandhas, to help us dismantle this confusion. Imagine your being as like a house assembled from many different components, rather than a solid, unchanging block of stone. We often beat our chests and claim, "I am this body," or "I am this emotion." But slow down and observe carefully. Look at your hand. You can see it. You can feel if it is hot or cold. This means the hand is the object being observed, and you are the subject observing it. The observed cannot be the observer. Similarly, when a wave of anger or sadness hits, you feel its presence. You see it arrive, make your heart beat faster, and then fade away. If you were that anger, you would have disappeared when the anger vanished. But no, the anger passes, and you remain. The truth is, there is no rigid self controlling everything. What we call I is actually just a continuous flow of physical body, sensations, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. They aggregate and dissolve in every moment. When you peel back these layers of the onion, you will see there is no fixed core. This may sound scary, but it is actually the greatest news. Because if you are not this body or these emotions, then the illnesses of the body cannot ruin your essence, and the suffering of emotions cannot imprison you. You are not the drifting clouds. You are the vast space that contains everything but belongs to nothing. When you understand this dissolution, the burden of protecting the ego will automatically fall away, leaving you with an infinite sense of relief. Part 5. Observation instead of control. So when facing these rambling and chaotic streams of thought, what must we do? The natural reflex for most of us is to try to control them. We command the mind to be silent. We suppress sadness, deny anger, and strain ourselves to chase away negative thoughts. But my dear friend, you cannot use violence to find peace. The more you resist, the stronger and more persistent those thoughts become, like a spring that bounces back harder the more you compress it. The secret of liberation lies in two simple but powerful words: observe. Instead of playing the role of the controller or the participant in the mind's story, switch to the role of a silent witness. Imagine your mind is a flowing river. Thoughts and worries are leaves and branches floating on the water. Instead of jumping into the river to pick up the leaves or trying to dam the water, just sit quietly on the green bank. Watch the leaf float by, acknowledge its presence, and then watch it drift away. You don't need to do anything. When you only observe without judgment, without liking or hating, you are cutting off the energy source that feeds that thought. The nature of every thought is to arise and pass away. It is like a bubble. It rises on its own and will burst on its own. If you do not provide the additional energy of attention and reaction, it cannot exist for long. Remember, the sky never exerts effort to push the clouds away. It is simply the vast space for clouds to move freely. When you practice this pure observation, you will see the inner storms gradually subside. Not because you destroyed them, but because you stopped fueling them. Letting go is not the effort of throwing away. It is the act of letting things be according to their natural laws. That is the true rest of the soul. Part 6. Anatta, a free-flowing stream. As we go deeper into observation, we encounter one of the most fundamental yet misunderstood concepts in Buddhism: anatta, or non-self. Many people feel afraid when they hear this word, because they think non-self means they don't exist, that it is nothingness or a complete disappearance. But my dear friend, non-self does not deny your presence. It only denies your frozenness. Buddhism teaches that the self is not a fixed object, but a process, a continuous flow of change. Imagine a river. That river has a name and a winding shape, but the water in the river flows incessantly. Yesterday's water is not today's water. You are also such a vivid flow. You are not a static noun. You are an ongoing verb. Your body changes cells every second. Your thoughts and emotions arise and pass like ripples. There is no fixed boss sitting at the center giving orders. There is only a miraculous process of life in motion. Humanity's greatest suffering comes from trying to frame that flexible flow into a solid monument to protect. We build an image of the self, that I am a successful person, I am a good person, I am an important person, and then we spend our whole lives straining to protect that monument. When someone praises us, we add gold to the statue. When someone criticizes or insults us, we feel as though the statue is being smashed, and we suffer intensely. The burden of maintaining and protecting that false ego is truly too great. It leaves us exhausted and always living in fear. But when you understand Anatta, you realize there is no statue to protect. You are the water. If someone throws a stone into the river, the surface merely parts and then closes back up immediately, uninjured and unbroken. When there is no rigid self to protect, you suddenly become incredibly light. You are no longer afraid of judgment, no longer afraid of losing your image. You are free to flow, flexible and alive with life. You realize that you don't need to be anybody. You just need to be the life that is happening, and that is enough. That is the gentle and subtle liberation of the wisdom of non-self. Part 7. Emptiness. Freedom from labels. From the flow of non-self, we reach another jewel of wisdom, Sunyata, or emptiness. My dear friend, many people feel confused when they hear the word emptiness, thinking it means a meaningless void, nihilism, or a rejection of life. But please do not make such a disastrous mistake. Emptiness, in the eyes of the enlightened, is not nothingness, but absolute freedom from the mind's prejudices and labels. Try looking at an event happening before you, for example, a rain shower. The rain itself is just the phenomenon of water falling from the sky. It is neutral, neither good nor bad. But our mind immediately sticks labels on it like sad, gloomy, or annoying. It is that label, that story you weave around the rain, that makes you suffer, not the raindrops themselves. Emptiness is the ability to see things as they are, stripping away the veils of language and subjective judgment. When you return everything to its original clarity, you will see that this world has no intention of hurting you. Furthermore, emptiness is a sacred and miraculous space between a stimulus and your response. In daily life, when a harsh word comes, we usually react immediately with anger like a pre-programmed machine. We have no freedom. But those who understand emptiness see a gap in the middle. In that silent and empty gap, you have the absolute freedom to choose your attitude. You are not swept away by the old script of karmic habits. You can choose to smile instead of scowling, choose silent understanding instead of noisy arguing. It is in that empty space that wisdom and love have room to sprout. Understanding emptiness, you do not become indifferent or detached from life. On the contrary, you become immensely vivid and compassionate. Your heart becomes a vast space ready to receive all events that pass through without being entangled or scratched by anything. That is liberation right in the present. Part 8. Mindfulness in every moment of daily life. My dear friend, enlightenment is not something distant reserved only for practitioners on high mountains. Mindfulness is truly necessary and effective right in your own kitchen, office, or bedroom every day. When we step off the meditation mat, real life truly begins with all its joys, angers, loves, and sorrows. Imagine a very ordinary situation, like being caught in a heated argument with a loved one. Your heart beats fast, your face flushes, and hurtful words are ready to pour out. At that moment, instead of letting anger take control and shouting, "I am so angry," stop for a second. Breathe deeply and recognize, there is anger passing through me. Just that tiny separation is a life buoy that keeps you from drowning in the flood of emotions, maintaining your composure so you don't hurt the one you love. Or those times when you browse social media, see the brilliant successes of others, and suddenly feel incompetent or small. The voice of comparison and envy begins to whisper in your head. Instead of believing it and sinking into an inferiority complex, smile and remind yourself, that is not me. That is just an old habit of comparison of the mind operating. Even in the quiet of late night, when memories of past mistakes return to haunt you and cause insomnia, please do not believe that story of guilt. Look at it like an old film playing back on the screen of the mind. The most powerful mantra you can carry with you in every situation is, that is not me. When you separate yourself from chaotic psychological developments, you return clarity to your vision. You still live, still love, still work with all your heart, but with a completely different mindset. You are no longer a slave to unconscious reactions. You become the calm and wise master in your own home. Part 9. The Silent Witness. Returning to pure awareness. We are entering the deepest space and the final destination of the journey of awakening. This is the place where all storms stop and all efforts are dropped to make room for the purest recognition. This is the position of the witness or awareness. My dear friend, try to contemplate this miraculous truth. When you were 5 years old, you had a small body and innocent thoughts. When you were 20, your body was strong and your thoughts full of ambition. And now, perhaps the body has been colored by time, and thoughts have become more settled. Everything about you, from your physical form and emotions to your memories, has completely changed. Nothing is as it was. But there is one thing that has never changed, never aged, and never been nicked. That is the knowing within you. What is aware that you are happy? What is aware that you are sad? What has witnessed you from childhood until now? That thing is you. It is the eternal, true essence. We call it awareness. Imagine that awareness is like the space in the room where you are sitting. You can bring into the room luxury furniture or old junk. You can light it brilliantly or turn off the lights. You can play loud music or maintain silence. But the space of the room never changes. It does not become crowded because of the furniture. It does not turn black because of the darkness. And it is not disturbed by noise. It is always empty, silent, and encompassing all. You are that space. Thoughts and emotions are just furniture being moved back and forth. When you can abide in the position of the witness, you will touch a peace that cannot be described in words. It is not a peace achieved by trying to suppress emotions, but the natural, inherent peace of the essence. You realize that you have never truly been hurt by negative thoughts. Just as the surface of a mirror is never stained by an ugly reflection, your consciousness is always pure and intact, regardless of how many tragedies you experience in your thoughts. Enlightenment, according to the Buddha's words, is not actually achieving some new supernatural feat. Enlightenment is simply remembering. You remember who you truly are after a long sleep of identifying yourself with the roles of life. When you remember you are the sky and not the cloud, the ocean and not the wave, all fear will vanish instantly. You return home, where eternal peace has always been waiting for you in every breath. My dear friend, our journey to find the true essence ends here for today. I hope you will always engrave in your heart the image of the sky and the clouds. Even if tomorrow, anxious thoughts or storms return, please do not panic. Smile and remind yourself, this is just a passing rain, and I am the vast sky. You don't need to try to become peaceful, because your nature is already peace. You only need to remember that. If today's sharing brought you a little light of awakening or a moment of relief, please plant a wholesome seed by hitting the subscribe button so we can continue our journey together. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts as a way to affirm the presence of the witness within you. May you always be steady, at ease, and abiding in the home of the present. Goodbye, and see you in peace.